Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm meteorologist Mike Ottenweller here at your National Weather Service. And as always, you've turned into your Alaska weather. Tonight is October 18th, 2017. And if you need to get in touch with any of the three offices, 1-800-472-0391, or you can use our website, weather.gov/Alaska. That'll get you the Fairbanks, Juneau, or Anchorage office, or the regional perspective, and nws.ar.tv weather at noaa.gov. If you have any comments, questions, or other feedback that you'd like to send, Mr. Dave Snider is the recipient on that email account. So let's jump in. We've got quite a bit to talk about. First of all, looking up towards the Arctic coastline here for our hazards this evening, and you can see that we do have some winter weather advisories in effect. These are for the central Beaufort Sea coast and for the northeast portion of the Brooks Range, and that is until 8 a.m. on Thursday for 1 to 2 inches of additional snow accumulation, and for gusts in the winds as high as 35 miles an hour, producing some pockets of blowing snow, lower visibility. So please be cautious if you have to travel in those regions. We do have an advisory in effect for those conditions. And again, that's until 8 a.m. on Thursday. Those are the only two advisories we have out. Let's take a look at our satellite. And you can see a pretty active pattern continues to unfold here. We do have quite a bit of northerly flow working from north to south over the state, helping to usher cold air from the Arctic coast all the way down through the south central portion of the mainland. Fairly quiet conditions out over the Bering Sea with just some snow showers there. But as we look towards Juneau's area, we can see one area of low pressure spinning kind of due east at this time, should eventually start to move a little bit more southeast. And with that, we do have some wraparound rain and some rain showers. Some of this could be heavy at times along the coastline there, especially southbound towards Ketchikan. But that low should continue to move east as we go into the next couple days. A real big storm system that we're keeping an eye on is this guy out here. He's going to really help to induce quite a bit of active weather as we move through the next couple days. You can just start to see the colder cloud tops moving into the western Aleutians at this time. We are going to watch this system as it transitions across the Aleutians and across the Bering Sea. It will have various impacts from heavy rain to strong winds, and then eventually make its way into the Gulf of Alaska. And so we'll put that move into motion one more time. There's that northerly flow, cold air, kind of a broad cyclonic gyre across the state, allowing cold air to come in. Weak high pressure here, helping to reinforce that north to northwesterly flow. And our systems, one in the southeast and one way out west. So how does that look on our surface map this afternoon? Well, just some light snow showers across much of central and southern Alaska. I should say just over the higher terrain of central and southern Alaska. A few snow showers reported up in Fairbanks. And the real area of snow is stretching basically just off the Seward Peninsula coastline and then down towards Bristol Bay. That eventually becomes a little bit of light rain showers as we get towards the Pribilof Islands and towards the Alaska Peninsula. But our weak area of low pressure here helping to kind of keep that cold air coming down in that counterclockwise fashion. And then our stronger area of low pressure, 971 millibars, continues that slow eastward trek. You can see some of that wraparound cold air cumulus. So it is helping to pump some cold air on the backside here in this cold front, and then lots of moisture associated on the front side, the eastward side of this system, bringing rain to the southern part of the southeastern portion of the state, and just some showers as you get up towards Skagway and Haines. There's our bigger system, and we'll go ahead and take one step forward in time to tonight so we can get a better view of that one. And that's down to 980 millibars, not overly strong, but does have a pretty impressive amount of moisture and jet support. And we'll see this thing continue to work its way east. Here's some moderate rain working over the central Aleutians, and you can again see those tight isobars, that tight packing in those lines there, which means strong winds first coming out of the east and then wrapping around the backside from the west. As we look towards the mainland, you can see some snow showers continuing tonight along the coastline here for the west coast of the state. And again, that northerly flow just really helps to reinforce snow showers and eventually rain showers this time of year, with a warm surface temperature out over the Bering and cold air moving down from the Arctic. More rain showers expected for the Gulf of Alaska, and then we should see things improving as this low slowly slides to the east for southeast Alaska, but still expect rain and a possibility of some rain snow for higher elevations through tonight. Some light snow along the Alcan border, not expecting a whole lot of impacts from that. On into Thursday, there's our area of low pressure continuing to slide to the east at 979 millibars, continue to bring plenty of wind and plenty of rain to the Aleutians and making its way towards the Gulf of Alaska. We're going to be interested in this area here as how that develops as we go towards the weekend. But in the meantime, light snow will continue associated with that northerly flow over western Alaska. And as we get towards the Gulf of Alaska, another area of low pressure has spun up, 983 millibars, just continuing to allow those rain showers to work from west to east into southeast Alaska. Then into Friday, should just see some light rain and some possibility of rain-snow mix for higher elevations over southeast Alaska. Here's our storm system that is now kind of setting up a new area of low pressure at 976 millibars. This is what we'll be watching as we go Friday into the weekend. How this system tracks and where exactly it goes could be the possibility for the first snow for much of south central Alaska. And out over the Bering Sea, plenty of cold northerly flow bringing showers and snow showers to those areas. As we look at temperatures, you can see tonight expecting generally lows in the upper 30s to low 40s for southeast Alaska. Looking for temperatures pretty cold over the Copper River Basin in the single digits, in the upper teens and maybe low 20s for southern Alaska. Southwest Alaska, you'll expect lows tonight in the mid 20s. And then up over the Brooks Range, that's where our real cold air is still confined down to near -10. And up along the coastline there, still not seeing the ice all the way in, so temperatures in the teens. For our high temperatures tomorrow, going to see things warm up a little bit in southeast Alaska in the mid-40s. Generally, we'll see single digits along the Brooks Range with about low to mid-20s for the Copper River Basin. Out towards the southwest coast, expect temperatures near 30, and up over the northwest portion of the state, temperatures near 20. On Friday, expect temperatures to dip in the morning into the upper 30s, low 40s, and generally we'll see anywhere from single digits to the mid-teens for much of the rest of the state. And then on Friday afternoon, pretty similar conditions, a little bit colder than what we saw on Thursday as cold air continues to be reinforced over the state.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Looking at our flying weather for Thursday morning now, you can see here out over the Bering where our next system is developing a fairly wide swath of IFR conditions. And then as we bring some of that warm, moist air up from the North Pacific, you can expect a pretty wide area of MVFR conditions as well. Some pockets of IFR with those moisture moving through the terrain here. Pockets of IFR all the way out through the Kuskokwim Mountains, stretching back through the Alaska Range and even towards the Alcan border. And then as we look toward the northern part of the state, you can see here along the Arctic coastline as that northerly flow continues to push some moisture down towards the Seward Peninsula and the northwest portion of the state. There's some IFR pockets up there and some IFR pockets just north of the Brooks Range. Looking out towards southeast Alaska, most of the MVFR and IFR conditions will be offshore, just have a little bit left of that moisture coming associated with that low, making MVFR conditions for the southeastern portion of southeast Alaska. Then on Thursday afternoon, you can expect a little bit more energy to move in there and thus producing some IFR conditions in the intercoastal ways there and MVFR conditions out over the Gulf of Alaska. Conditions starting to improve a little bit Thursday afternoon as we see northerly flow helping to dry things out over the south central portion of the mainland. And then out as towards the Bering, here's where we have that fairly wide swath of IFR conditions, again associated with that next system that is developing, of course surrounded by MVFR conditions across the rest of the Bering. Similar story from the morning to the afternoon on Thursday up towards the Arctic coastline with maybe just a slight improvement with some afternoon heating. By Friday morning, that system is now stretching a little bit further to the east and starting to stretch out from east to west, so IFR conditions expected along the Aleutian Range, with MVFR conditions now hugging right up against the west coast of southwest Alaska. A few spots of MVFR conditions with some moisture hugging the terrain across the mainland, and then along the Arctic coastline, that's where we have a few more pockets of IFR and MVFR conditions. MVFR conditions for much of southeast Alaska as weak onshore flow will help to keep moisture backing up in the terrain. And then for Friday afternoon, similar story for southeast Alaska and looking towards the Bering and the Alaska Peninsula now. Those IFR conditions have slipped just a little bit farther to the east, starting to impact areas like Sandpoint and Cold Bay. Up towards the Arctic coastline, not a whole lot of change that we see up there. IFR conditions will continue to be splotchy from the north to the south along the west coast. So how about our passes? Well, Anaktuvik will be MVFR, should be improving to VFR as that northerly flow kicks up, and Atigun will be the same. Looking at Lake Clark and Merrill to do the same thing, MVFR early and then improving to visual flight rules. Rainy should be instrument flight rules early and improving to visual flight rules. Windy should be instrument flight rules, but primarily on the north entrance. The south entrance should be VFR with that northerly flow helping to keep things clear there. Isabel will be adjusting from MVFR to VFR. And from Mentasta, instrument flight rules becoming visual flight rules in the afternoon. Tenita and Portage should be VFR through the day. And then Chilkoot and White with that onshore flow, of course, instrument flight rules should dominate through the passes there. As we look at our freezing levels, well, as you'd expect, as we had this colder air starting to creep across the mainland, surface line now hugging the coastline, except over southeast Alaska, a little bit higher here at 2,000 feet, and it's not until you get over the Bering where you see that really stacked up warmer air all the way up to 10,000 feet. The lines are actually so tight there that it was even hard to put all the numbers in, but 2,000 climbing to 10,000 in a very short span of time. And then for our icing charts, you can see here we're looking for below 10,000 feet, just a small area over the eastern Gulf. A little bit wider swath of isolated, maybe occasional moderate up over the mainland and parts of the the Alcan border, below 9,000 feet. And then below 7,000 feet, isolated moderate along the northern portion of the state and the western portion of the state. It's out here below 8,000 and 6,000 feet where we have plenty of icing associated with our next system. So as far as the jet stream, a weak finger of the polar jet coming around this area of low pressure, helping to produce some of that moisture and some of those conditions along the Arctic coastline there, keeping conditions a little bit lower as moisture interacts with the terrain. And then out over the Aleutians and working its way into the North Pacific, this raging 175-knot jet, very strong zonal jet, not atypical this time of year, but helping to keep the weather pattern quite active as low after low spin off of this jet and start to move towards the mainland. What does that mean for our 9,000-foot winds? Well, the area I want you to focus on is out here over the western Bering, 55 knots with a very sharp turn from west to east and then north to south, south to north, out over the Bering with that area of low pressure. Otherwise, we're looking for fairly gusty northwest winds through the gaps along the Kodiak Island area. Same story at 3,000 feet with a little bit better turning here even at 3,000 feet. And so what does that mean for our turbulence? Well, expect some moderate with possibilities of severe below 6,000 and out over the Gulf below 5,000. Thanks for this portion. We'll be right back with the marine forecast.
For the first 100 years of the history of the surveyors, their work was done as civilians, even at times of war. In the Civil War, the civilian surveyors were in a precarious position. They accompanied Army and Navy units, and because they were not wearing uniforms, could have been considered spies if captured by the enemy. In World War I, Congress remedied the situation. They created a commissioned service which today is called the NOAA Corps. Being uniformed and commissioned made it easier for Corps members to apply their technical skills for military purposes. During World War I, Corps officers played many roles from mine laying in the North Sea to navigating troop transport to intelligence gathering. In World War II, the surveyors were again called to serve. Women joined the survey in large numbers, a fact still true today. In Europe and the Pacific, surveyors helped guarantee the safe passage of troops and equipment. Better tide predictions ensured safe troop landings. Fine-tuned positioning improved the accuracy of bombing and artillery missions. Millions of aeronautical and nautical charts were produced. The efforts of the surveyors saved countless Allied and American lives. The 20th century witnessed an explosion in the new technologies used by the surveyors. In 1958, the launch of the Explorer rocket ushered in a new age of surveying, one that relied on satellites. This was the first step in what would become the Global Positioning System, or GPS. Over the course of 3 decades, GPS technology went from rare to commonplace. Today, the surveyors use GPS in a wide variety of applications: in the air, on land, and on the sea. Surveyors are even using GPS to create state-of-the-art runway charts. These charts will make it possible for pilots to land more safely, even when they have zero visibility. GPS is only one part of the new electronic approach to chart making. New technology has also transformed tide data collection. Today's tide stations use acoustic sensors to compute the water height to millimeter accuracy. An automated network of more than 200 tide gauges known as the National Water Level Observation Network continually transmits an ocean of data to users via the internet. Another of today's cutting-edge technologies is called multi-beam sonar. Multi-beam sonar systems send out acoustic signals called pings. To calculate distance, the system measures the time it takes for the ping to travel from the transmitter on the boat to the bottom and back.
Chief, I've got something for you to look at here. Okay. We seem to have an obstruction here right below the bridge. Looks to be about 3 meters.
The data collected by the multi-beam sonar becomes the basis for a three-dimensional map of the seafloor. Anomalies seen in 3D jump out and are evaluated by the survey team.
Just outside the channel, watered up at 26 feet. This will be a danger to navigation. This needs to have a D-time report sent out today so they can get out and published immediately.
Okay, I'll do that today, sir.
Very well.
Today, U.S. ports receive more than 22,000 visits a year from ocean-going container ship. 2/3 of all the goods moving in and out of the United States travel by sea, accounting for $500 billion worth of trade annually. Ships are built to maximize volume. 150 years ago, a cargo ship may have only needed 10 feet of clearance from the seafloor. Today, a container ship draws 5 times that. The margin between a bridge above and a rock below can be very, very narrow. Through the internet and telephone, a ship's pilot can get instant information about actual weather and water conditions, rather than having to rely on predictions.
Captain Rittenhouse, 1,000 yards to go, and if we can come right 1 degree.
In addition to paper charts, they can use electronic charts that show exactly where a ship is at any given moment. All these tools can make the difference between smooth sailing and a shipwreck. But nowhere is the need for these tools more apparent than when a natural disaster strikes. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina pummeled the Gulf Coast. The surveyors mobilized immediately. Tide information was used to predict which areas would be most affected and to plan for evacuations. Surveying planes took aerial photographs and posted them on the internet so that people could see if their homes were still standing. And when the storm winds died down, survey boats did emergency mapping to find hidden debris so that ships could once again move safely in and out of 13 major Gulf ports. These new charts were also used to help restore damaged fishing grounds, a key part of the Gulf economy. Surveyors are building new computer models of hurricane-prone areas, not just of New Orleans, but any part of the country that could be affected by extreme weather. Detailed analysis of the impact of storms can lead to better planning, saving property, and saving lives. From the first paper chart of New York Harbor published in 1845 to the 3D charts of tomorrow, the surveyor's pursuit of precision serves one purpose: to make navigation safer. All told, their achievements are staggering. 100 million charts, 9,000 tide and current stations, 95,000 miles of shoreline mapped, and a survey network of more than 1.5 million control points. Today, the ongoing work of the surveyors touches every aspect of our daily lives, protecting millions of lives, billions of dollars in property, and irreplaceable natural resources.
Level 7, 8, 2, 6, 6, 5. Relax.
Jefferson's mission continues, deepening our knowledge of the continent we live on and of the ocean that sustains us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at our sea surface temperatures as of this afternoon. You can see still pretty warm down here in the Gulf of Alaska, and also still pretty warm up here, pushing to near about the 40 to 50 degree mark in a lot of places, still over the eastern portion of the Bering Sea. So that's helping to contribute to that cold air moving over that warmer water here in the Gulf and over the eastern Bering, helping to contribute to some of those heavier snow and rain showers that we were seeing earlier and talking about earlier. As far as our sea ice, you can see that it is growing ever so slowly here along the coastline from Kaktovik over towards Prudhoe Bay. And obviously with that cold air in place, we expect continued growth for the next several days, possibly even the next several weeks. No real signs of any strong warm up, and so we are in the late October time period. Expect the sea ice to continue to make advances. Let's take a look now at our marine forecast for southeast Alaska, and as you can see here, pretty active inner passageways. North winds in Lynn Canal, 25 knots, seas about 5 feet, and then a little bit more confused flow, north 15, 3-foot seas towards the Petersburg area, but out of the Dixon entrance, southeast, 20 knots and seas 9 feet on Thursday. Out over the Gulf of Alaska, northwest and northeast in the northern portion of the Gulf, 15 to 20 knots and seas about 10 feet, and then becoming more northwest and westerly, 10 to 20 knots, seas increasing from 13 up to 20 feet, where that area of low pressure continues to work on the water. And then Friday now, we can expect south winds 20 knots with gusts to 35 for Lynn Canal, so gale force gusts there, seas 4 feet, and southerly winds for the southern portion of the inner passageways as well, 6 to 4 foot seas and 15 to 20 knots again out of the south. Looking out over the open waters, mainly west winds, 15 to 20 knots, and seas running anywhere between 8 and 14 feet there on Friday. Thursday now for south central Alaska, you can see a general northerly outflow winds across much of the area. We do have some concerns for stronger gusts near Whittier, near Seward, the general outflow places. Copper River Delta, you can expect some gusts out of the north to 35 knots near that area. Seas are going to be between 8 and 10 feet, and the strongest winds out of the northwest there through the Barrens, 30 to 40 miles an hour, and expecting 10-foot seas in that area on Thursday. For Friday, you can expect north winds at about 10 knots and becoming northwest as you get out towards the eastern Barren Islands, about 20 knots there, and seas on the order of 2 to 3 feet in protected waters, but out over the open Gulf closer to 6 to 7 feet. And then on into Thursday for the Alaska Peninsula, general northwest winds there as well. Again, as that strong cold air sweeps down, we have that northwest wind coming behind that low, and winds are going to be between 15 and 30 knots. And seas are going to be about 7 to 11 feet north of the Alaska Peninsula and 7 to 13 feet on the south side. And then on into Friday now, switching things around a little bit more northeast as that area of low pressure approaches from the south-southwest, and so we'll see northeast winds 15 to 25 knots and seas on the order of about 3 to 9 feet. Then out towards the Aleutians, this is where we expect the most active weather. Let me slide over so you can see, looking for southeast and easterly winds 15 to 30 knots, but then as we get over towards the system, becoming 35 knots out of that direction, and seas starting to climb up towards 21 feet over the western Aleutians. There's a fairly deep area of low pressure. As that area of low pressure passes to the south, winds will shift out of the north and generally be in the order of about 30 to 35 knots as well, and seas between 10 and 23 feet here south of Atka. As we get out towards the west coast, you can expect a northwest wind to start Thursday, and that'll be between 15 and 25 knots. And on that wind, you'll expect seas about 7 to 9 feet along the coast there, a little bit lower up near the Seward Peninsula, a little bit protected 3-foot seas. And Friday for the west coast, you can expect, again, north winds, starting to see a little bit more northeasterly with that area of low pressure starting to slide by, 10 to 30 knots, and seas on the order of about 2 to 10 feet. And up towards the Arctic coastline here, expect that sea ice again to continue to make advances, but right now northeast winds 20 knots becoming east and then northerly towards the west coast, anywhere between 20 and 25 knots, seas 11 feet here off the coast of Barrow, but in general about 6 to 8 feet. And on into Friday, west winds north of Kaktovik at 15 knots, but otherwise northeast throughout the area, 10 to 30 knots, and seas between 5 feet on the north side of the state and then becoming 10 to 12 feet on the northwest portion. So let's recap the weather. We can continue to have snow showers along the west coast, and we do have our winter weather advisory tonight until 8 a.m. for the northeast Brooks Range and the Beaufort Sea Coast. And then we'll be watching this area of low pressure start to make its way eastward, and this area of low pressure starting to make its way off of our map. As we go into Thursday, expect that area of low pressure to continue to move east, and the area of low pressure in the southeast to continue to produce some light rain. Thanks for joining us, and have a great night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.